what's up? Good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Headroom. Ah, yes. It's funny that this is 2015. Right now, the song in my head is from the year 2000. And not surprisingly, it's a hip-hop song. I'll get into the songs that I'm listening to right now in just a bit. But first of all, we're setting off the first edition of the show by taking you back in time. This is the point where we have that wavy effect on the screen. Hope we can get it right. As we go back and just give you a little brief history of hip-hop music in Nigeria. Alright, sadly, I couldn't compile or come across any definitive article telling you when it all first started, when people started rapping here in Nigeria. But I went across, I went through some articles on the internet. I heard about people like Sound on Sound. I already knew about Junior and Pretty. Then, of course, there was Emphasis. These guys, according to one article I came across, started as far back as in the late 80s, but moving closer to the 90s, of course, we know of Tribesmen, we know of SWAT Roots, and we know of Mode 9. But here's what we'll do. For those of you who've been listening to hip-hop music, please hit me up on Twitter telling me the first rappers from Nigeria that you ever listened to. Please let me know. It's very important. So tell me the first Nigerian rappers you ever listened to, and what was your take on them? Were they nice or not so nice or whack? Let me know. So that will be for the next edition. But on this edition, apart from the history of hip-hop, which we've covered in just like 2 seconds, we're going to look at current times, the most notable rappers today. Big ups to the MIs, big ups to the Ice Prince, big ups to Rugged Man, big ups to Mode 9 and the rest of them. Now, if you're searching for a list of rappers from Nigeria, if you go online, apart from MI, Ice Prince, and some of those names that I've mentioned and forgotten to mention, you will also come across names like, surprisingly, D'banj, Wizkid, Durella. So it got me thinking, what is it about these people that makes them also rappers or hip-hop? Is there something about these guys? And I know a lot of hip-hop heads will say, oh no, they should never mention Wizkid as a rapper. But let's break it down. Let's start with a definition of hip-hop culture. Alright, so we begin with the definition of hip-hop culture, and it says that hip-hop is the constantly evolving spirit and consciousness of urban youth that keeps recreating itself in a never-ending cycle. The words I want to focus on there are words like consciousness, spirit. What is the hip-hop spirit? If you ask me, it comprises lots of things, but when you see guys that don't rap, who do things like brag about how many cars and how many girls they have, I think that's part of the hip-hop mindset. It's part of the hip-hop spirit to feel like you are the best at what you do. So it doesn't mean that you have to rap in some cases to be hip-hop. If you dress a certain way and you have certain videos that showcase a certain lifestyle, some would consider it the hip-hop lifestyle. So we're talking about hip-hop in Nigeria, and why is it that perhaps people who don't rap seem to be taking from the hip-hop culture? They call them culture vultures. They're taking from hip-hop, and yet the so-called rappers are not gaining that mainstream prominence. What is it about rapping that works against the rappers? Now I'm going to take you back in time once again. Not as far back as the 80s, but to 2012. A well-known producer in Nigeria is Don Jazzy, and here's what he had to say about people who rap in Nigeria. So in the 2012 interview in Hip Hop World magazine, Don Jazzy said that if you are doing rap in Nigeria, your parents will not be proud of you. Yes. And some people kind of took offense with this statement. For instance, Terry the Rap Man went on Twitter and said something like, so our parents will not be proud of us. This is a diss to us. It got me questioning the whole idea of dissing in hip-hop, but I'll come back to that in just a bit. Don Jazzy later on apologized on the then Mo Hits website, saying that he didn't mean to offend anyone, but seriously and practically speaking, he gave the example of Dr. Sid, saying that Dr. Sid used to rap, but he gave him advice, telling him that, look, if you keep using these big words, Your parents will not understand what you're saying. And that was the case with Dr. Sid. His father couldn't understand what he was talking about until he started doing songs like, the popular Dr. Sid tracks. And all was well between him and his father. His father said, "Now you are my son. I can sing your songs to my wife. I understand what you're saying." And Don Jazzy said that he doesn't want to listen to music and have to refer to a dictionary each time he's listening to the music. It is too much work. But he did add that there are a few rappers out there who know what they are doing. They know how to manipulate the system. They know how to infuse some of the Niger elements, and their music is commercially viable. So, to the rapper out there trying to push his career in Nigeria, what is the formula for success? Should you dumb it down a little bit? Keep in mind that in hip-hop, sometimes people feel they should elevate the thinking of the listener, but realistically speaking, in this sort of environment, shouldn't you dumb it down a bit so people will understand you better to succeed so that you don't starve? That was a thought from Don Jazzy. So, apart from spirit and consciousness, the other word from the definition of hip-hop I want to focus on are other words. Are the words urban and youth, okay? It seems that hip-hop is perceived as something for the young people only. And looking at Africa, I like to describe it as a continent for old men. You remember that movie, No Country for Old Men? Well, there are lots of countries for old men in Africa, apparently. If you look at the scene, the political scene, they say that the average African president is 61 years of age. How about that? And the word youth, in my humble opinion, a lot of times, it connotes, it's to do with things like restiveness, unemployment, and general neglect. So, if you have a continent or a country where it seems youth issues are not really being addressed, perhaps that's the reason why music for the youth is not really that commercially viable, if you know what I mean. So my question to all these rappers out there, is it even a good idea to pursue a career in hip-hop that is for the youth when you are in a country where apparently they don't really care about you? Something worth thinking about. I like to keep the show interactive, so when I share these thoughts, we ask questions along the way, and hopefully you can hit me up on Twitter, sharing with me some of your thoughts concerning these issues. So I'm wondering, over the years to come in Nigeria's hip-hop industry, how many rappers are we going to have? Right now it seems we have only a handful. 10, 15, 20 years to come, where do you see Nigerian hip-hop? Is this culture going to grow, or is it going to die? Catch me on the next edition of The Headroom. I'm out of here. Booyah!